Well, it is time to learn about fractions, and in this tutorial we are going to cover the introduction as well as the types of fractions. Okay, well, going back to our elementary school level knowledge, we know that fraction is something you obtain when you divide something into two or more pieces, right? And that exactly is the origin of this word fraction. It comes from the Arabic word fractio, which means to divide something into two or more pieces. All right, now along with those lines, let us take a look at this circle. Right now, I have one full circle, okay? And I'm dividing this circle into four parts by the way of these divider lines I have, right? And when I divide this, what do I really obtain? When I look at each one of those divided areas, it tells me that the circle that was one has been divided into four parts. Or alternatively, you can say that 1/4 is the size of each one of those slices that come after the division. Now you can call this circle as a pie or you can call this circle as a pizza. It doesn't matter. The concept is you had something that was one whole unit and you divided that one whole unit into four parts. And that's exactly what fraction is, 1/4. Now, how would you mathematically represent this fraction? So, the mathematic definition of fraction is it is the ratio of two numbers, a over b, such that a and b are integers. That means they could be positive or negative, right? And b is not equal to 0. And this is a necessary condition. Because you think logically that when you have something and you want to divide that something, some object into 0 parts, it can't. You cannot divide anything with 0, right? That doesn't exist mathematically or physically, right? So this is our definition of fraction. Now, in addition to that, you need to know some basic terminology associated with fractions. The one which is at the top, the one which is being divided, it is called numerator, okay? And the one which is at the bottom, the one which is dividing, it is called the denominator, all right? So we are going to be using these two terms a lot whenever we deal with variety of operations on the fractions, all right? So always keep that in mind. Okay, now we have learned about the definition, we have learned about how you obtain a fraction and the basic terminology. Let us now pay some attention on what are various types of fractions, okay? So if I write some numbers here, let's say 1/7, 2/5, 3/8, right? What you see as a trend in these numbers is that the numerator is always less than the denominator, right? Or in general, you can say that a is less than b, right? And when that happens, you say that these kind of fractions, whenever a is less than b or the numerator is less than the denominator, these are called proper fractions. Okay, that's the way you want fractions to appear. That is why we are calling them as proper fractions, okay? And the second type of distinction happens is whenever you see that the number a is greater than b or numerator is bigger than the denominator, such as 7/3, 5/2, 9/6. These could happen because they also satisfy the definition of fraction. You see, the fraction we have defined is the ratio of two numbers, right? As long as these two numbers are integers and the denominator is not 0, it is a fraction, right? And all of these satisfy this condition, right? So that means there must be a name for such kind of fractions, and that name is what we call as improper fraction. Okay? So the clear distinction is a proper fraction is one when you have numerator less than the denominator, as simple as that. And whenever that doesn't happen, you call them as improper fraction. Okay, along with that line, you will come across these kind of numbers a lot as well, such as 2/3/4 or 5/6/7 or 1 3/4. These kind of fractions, when they contain some whole number part as well as a fractional part like this. Each one of them has that, right? There is a whole number, 2, the 5, the 1, right? And then there is a fractional part as well right here. So these kind of fractions are called mixed fractions because they contain not just the whole number, but they also contain fractions. Hence we call them as mixed fractions. Okay, so these were the three main distinctions based on how you find these numbers, all right? So along with that, I could define another distinction, and that distinction is, let's say I have some numbers here, 1 over 7, 2 over 7, 3 over 7. All of these are fractions, right? But you see, there is some trend going on that all of these fractions, these are different fractions, all of them have their denominator the same, right? And whenever you encounter that two or more fractions, they have the same denominator, then you call them as like fractions, all right? Very easy to remember, right? And of course, when you see two or more fractions not having the same denominator, such as this, okay, I wrote three fractions, 2 over 7, 3 over 9, 5 over 8, they do not have the same denominator. And when that exists, you say that these are unlike fractions. Okay, simple rule that when you find two or more fractions having the same bottoms, you call them as like fractions. This property of fractions will be very useful when you learn about addition and subtraction operation on fractions. Okay, and you also need to know about another property of fractions. Say, let's say I have a fraction 1 over 2, and then I have another fraction 2 over 4, and then I have another fraction 4 over 8. These three are three different fractions, right? But you see, 2 can divide 4, right? So when that happens, 2 over 4 can very easily be converted into another fraction, which is 1 over 2. Similarly, 4 over 8, it can very easily be converted to 1 over 2. All you have to do is divide 8 with 4. That means there is something common between numerator and denominator, right? So in such cases, you see that whenever you can reduce a fraction to its lowest possible form, such as this, 4/8 was reduced down to 1/2, 2/4 was reduced down to 1/2, and 1/2 is already in its lowest possible form, but all of them essentially are equal to each other because their lowest possible form has the same value in each one of those. Then such fractions are called equivalent fractions. All right. So very quickly, we learned about few different distinctions of fractions. When you have their values of the numerators and denominators different, you will come across a distinction between fractions such as proper or improper or mixed fractions. When you have a condition in which the denominator is same or not, then you will come across two kinds of fractions. We say them like or unlike fractions. And when you find that two or more fractions have the same value when they are reduced down to their lowest possible form, then we say that these are equivalent fractions. And you will find the knowledge of this very useful when you come across handling the operations on fractions. Okay. With that, now let us proceed to learn more about fractions by comparing between fractions or by performing various mathematical operations on fractions. Okay.